and we're looking at 4 station options outside of Burbank along that right-of-way that include City of San Fernando, Brantford Road in the City of Los Angeles, an area right around the Pacoima Wash, also in the City of Los Angeles, and I think that's it. My guess is at the October board meeting, what will shake out of that is study the 2 stations in Burbank, study 1 station option in the City of San Fernando, and move forward. That would be our goal, would be to narrow down the range of station options, because every time we add another station or we sort of amend how we're looking at stations, I mean, we've got to go through the environmental process at each of those locations and redo anything we've done in the past. And so our goal, as we enter the environmental impact phase, is to narrow the station options down to maybe 3 in the valley, and then the 2 in Palmdale.
Talking about the alternative stations, let's just talk, for example, about the 2 in Burbank and the 2 in Palmdale. Let's say the Center City one and the Mount Center City one. Have you been modeling the ridership? How much difference is there with those 2 options?
It's interesting. Let's leave Palmdale out of this. Palmdale's going to get a station regardless. The issue that we've had is, does it make sense to have two valley stations? The short answer is no. It's never really made sense in some of us to have 2. Okay, so if we assume that it doesn't make sense, we're going to have 1 station in the valley. What makes the most sense? All of the modeling that's been done, and it's being done by a separate firm, Cambridge Systematics, under contract to the authority, suggests that the ridership would be about double if we push the station further north. The closer we get to Union Station, what I think the model starts to assume is that if the closer we are to, say, Glendale, the further south we get in Burbank, even, I think, and I'm speculating a little bit because we don't know what's in the black box, we don't know everything that's in the black box, put it that way. I think what the model is doing.
UC Berkeley professor I can introduce you.
Yeah, well, I heard him speak, as a matter of fact. I think what the model is doing is telling us that once people get in their car and they start driving, they're going to keep going to Union Station because there are more trip options out of Union Station than there are at Burbank. For example, there'll be far more express trains from Union Station to San Francisco, for example, at Union Station than there will be at a Burbank station. So I think we're trip diversion, and the ridership numbers at Union Station, then when we model this, reflect that. They go up, Burbank goes down, San Fernando goes up, and we have a North Valley location. And I think it's because, in part, you have such a large trip shed and a population base in the North Valley that is only going to be served by 1 location. And as you get closer to LA, the trip shed becomes much smaller because people are going to, anyone south of Burbank is just going to go to LA. So the modeling has been a real issue. And for those of us who know just enough about it to be really dangerous with it, some of us have been a real thorn in the side of some of the modeling people because we keep asking questions. The more questions we ask and the worse we like the answers, it keeps prompting us to ask more questions. And so that's what we're doing. And we're trying to get, I'm trying to get a better handle on how we rationalize some of the modeling data, because right now it doesn't feel particularly intuitive to me.
One last
question
thing.
over here.
So,
Go on.
I'm sorry.
Palmdale has traditionally been a bedroom community, particularly for the San Fernando Valley. High-speed rail is not supposed to be commuter rail, but there has been a lot of speculation that it will have something to that effect. So same question in relation to that. And do you see that with a major commuter rail substitution factor from Palmdale into the valley?
What does it take to take Metrolink from Palmdale to LA to Union Station now? 2 hours? 2 hours and 10 minutes?
Yeah, hour and 50.
hour 50. 26 minutes on high-speed train. That sort of, my sense would be, that sort of answers that question. It's not designed to be commuter rail, but in certain corridors it's going to be, and that would be one of them. And Metrolink, frankly, is pleased by the prospect of not having to run trains all the way out there. So that's a bit of an issue. Is, who is this thing designed? What is this thing designed to serve, and who is the master in this? I'm afraid in some instances you're going to have sort of dual masters. You're going to have a lot of interstate traffic, and you're going to have a lot of intrastate traffic. So you're going to have a lot of local commuter traffic as well.
Section, and the buses will be faster than Metrolink.
Yeah.
So, two things. First of all, different areas have different propensities for ridership, particularly those areas where there are a lot of people who regularly commute to and from Northern California by train or by car. Burbank actually happens to be one of those locations because a lot of the people from the studios go up to Northern California for technology-related issues or CGI graphics, software-related issues. There's a nexus of travel between the Bay Area and the studios. So, one question I have is, to what extent does your model take into account these higher or lower propensities to actually use the service in different areas? Number two, going back to what you said about the FRA compliance issue, are you basically saying that regardless of what speed the High-Speed Rail Authority targets for the trains, that you would be unable to share the tracks from Palmdale to Los Angeles because of the FRA compliance issues? And if so, what is it about Los Angeles to Anaheim that would enable that?
The answer to your first question, with regards to the model, let me preface my answer by saying, it's not my model. I'm not any happier with it than a number of other folks. Does it recognize the unique trip-making patterns associated with some of the intra-community or inter-community sorts of things like Burbank to San Francisco? I don't know. I don't really know. I would hope, but I see no evidence of this in the operating plan that it would. But the operating plans, I don't know. I don't know what has gone into the black box to address that. But the model, but the operating plan itself doesn't appear to be particularly sensitive. I don't look at the operating plan for Burbank and San Francisco, for example, and see anything that stands out to me about how the modeling would or would not recognize something unique about the trip-making attributes from the Burbank region. So my guess, and I'm wildly speculating, would be no, is the answer to that.
That's my default assumption as well. So the follow-up to that then is, of course, bogging down the model with additional variables creates other problems. But when it comes time for the station site selection process, that is a factor that at least qualitatively has to be considered. Just from the business plan, what will maximize rather than.
Now, with regards to the operating speeds, the answer again is no. If we were going to, the reason that they're contemplating operating a shared track operation from Anaheim to LA is because of the short distance, and by grade separating everything, you could actually run Metrolink significantly faster than you could today, and as a function of that, you would reduce the, we weren't proposing running high-speed trains any more than 110 miles an hour in that corridor anyway. If you get Metrolink up to 90, which apparently you can if you grade separate everything, the distinction begins to dissipate. If you're talking about Palmdale